Welcome to the Robert Wenzel Show. Please stand by for Robert Wenzel.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Robert Wenzel Show. My name is Robert Wenzel. My guest today is Livia Perez. She's the lady that stood up to Paul Krugman when Krugman was in Spain, and she asked him whether inflation was theft. Livia works on the deal desk at an investment management firm in Madrid, Spain. She has a master's degree from the University Rey Juan Carlos, and she has an undergraduate degree from Waseda University. Livia speaks 4 languages: Portuguese, Spanish, English, and German. Livia, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I speak English, and that's about it, so I'm glad that's one of the languages you are fluent in. For the benefit of listeners who have not yet heard your questioning of Paul Krugman when he was in Spain, we're going to run that clip right now.
Hi, my name is Livia. I would like to thank you for being here. I'll try to be very brief. So I think we're all discussing here solutions for the European crisis. And what I get from your speech, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that the European Central Bank should do some measures in order to inject monetary solutions to Spain. For example, by creating money or buying our bonds, because obviously our interest rates are very high, and this would lead to smaller interest rates. My question simply is, this is called inflation, right? Don't you think inflation is theft? Because since it decreases the purchase power of people, this is actually theft. It would lead the people, ironically, to austerity back, because what you have doesn't really pay what you thought it would. And on the other hand, everybody would be paying the cost of a crisis, which, when actually the real responsibles for the crisis wouldn't be implied. So this is simply my question, if inflation is not considered that theft.
Well, I think it's, inflation is only theft if you consider anything that people didn't expect that affects some people for the worst theft. I mean, there is no promise. A euro note does not promise on it that it's going to have a fixed purchasing power in terms of goods. That was not part of the deal. A bond. There are bonds where you are protected against inflation, and they are inflation-protected bonds, and people pay a premium for that. And that's so it's not theft in any legal sense. And if you're worried about people who are not responsible for the crisis paying the price for the crisis, how about the 25% of Spain's labor force who are unemployed? How many of those people caused this crisis? I mean, what's actually happening is an enormous price is being paid by unemployed workers all across the Western world. And if I can find if a little bit of inflation, no one is talking Zimbabwe, no one is even talking 5%. If 3% inflation is a way to get some of those innocent victims out of their misery, I would think that's something well worth doing. It seems to be a strange kind of morality that is desperately concerned that people who bought bonds might be somewhat surprised by a modest erosion of the value of those bonds, and that's a terrible sin. But that having people who did nothing wrong be unemployed and have their lives destroyed is just part of the way the capitalist system is supposed to work.
Okay, Livia, now you get the chance to respond to Dr. Krugman. What would you say about his response to you?
First of all, I actually would ask him what's his definition of theft, because, like in my head, because he says first that there is no theft in any legal sense when there is inflation, right? And in my head, I cannot understand, I don't think in any legal sense that would not be theft, because once you have a contract with someone, for example, if I'm being hired and we are agreeing that at the end of the month I'm going to receive or earn this amount of money, then if the enterprise gives me 80% of the purchasing power we agreed on, this would be considered theft, right? Like they're not paying me as much as they told me they would. And I don't understand why this is any different with the government. Why the government can't take simply 80% or whatever of your money when they would take 20%, whichever amount. It makes no sense. For the government, it's no different. You know, money doesn't have any correspondence in terms of goods. This is not a deal, he says. Well, there was no deal, really, because the people were forced. They had to give away their real money and accept paper money by legal tender. So there is no deal. There's no agreement between people. We're just accepting whichever value money might have when the government says. Government says or gives the value of money, which is totally unfair. It's really funny because he says if inflation would solve the unemployment and so on, we could just introduce a little bit of inflation. We're not talking about Zimbabwe or 5% inflation. We're talking about a very small inflation. That for me was like, I'm not stealing a lot of you. I'm just stealing you a little bit. You know, like stealing a bit is okay. And it was just really funny because if inflation is not tough, then why don't you do 100% inflation? You know what I mean? Like you just solve all problems by inflating the currency, and it's just not true.
Right, exactly. And I think you were exactly correct when you pointed out that it is theft, because unless that money is going to you when it's printed, it's going to someone else who can bid against products that you're trying to buy. Am I correct there?
Exactly, and all people would pay for that. Like he's so concerned about unemployment. Like he's always playing with the good guy, saying these 25% Spanish people were not supposed to be paying the price of the stuff to inflating, then they would at least have employment. This is not true. First of all, the government is not the one responsible for giving people jobs. Enterprises are. And even if it were true, though, until people are back into the market, like being hired, that takes time. When you inflate a currency, prices go up a lot faster than people being hired. So actually unemployed people, they would pay for that as well because they would still have to survive, right? Like they have to go to the market and to the supermarket and buy stuff, and prices are going up. So even unemployed people would pay for inflation as well. So it makes no sense.
Isn't it like the unemployed people are almost fooled? Say, for example, they wanted a wage of 20 euros, or I don't know what the market is here, but say it's 20 euros, and the market rate is 18 euros. If the European Central Bank inflates and all prices go up, and the unemployed now see 20 euros, they might get all excited, but the purchasing power is less. Yeah. Am I correct on that?
Yeah. You're not really earning what you thought you would earn, though.
Right. Let me ask you a little bit about yourself. You're an investment manager. You're on a deal desk at an investment firm.
I'm not a manager myself, though. I'm a trader.
Okay. Can you tell us a little about the kind of trading you do? What do you trade?
We do something called value investing. Mm-hmm. We think long-term. We are also based in the Austrian School of Economics. Mm-hmm. So it's totally based on savings and, enterprises that show that they are very good enterprises and that are cheap in the market, and they're going to go, in the long run, they're going to be strong because they're very difficult to make competition with them. So what we basically do is buy very cheap stocks and sell them when we think they're high in the long run.
When did you first learn about Austrian economics, and how long ago?
I was in college because I studied politics. I studied political science. And I had this professor, Miguel Angel Bastos. In Spain, we have some very important professors linked to the Austrian School of Economics. Okay. One of them is Bastos, my ex-professor. The other one is Huerta de Soto, who is here in Madrid doing a master's that I did then afterwards. Mm-hmm. So through Bastos, I got to know that the Austrian School existed pretty much. Through him, I came to do a master's in Madrid with Huerta. Then I met everybody that works with me right now. We usually say that Madrid is the new Vienna because there are many people following the Austrian School of Economics here in Madrid. Mm-hmm. So it's actually very big. And then since I love politics and I love actually U.S. politics, I started following Ron Paul as well. Mm-hmm. So, pretty much it. But it's just amazing. Like, I always loved politics and economics, and I think the Austrian School of Economics is the one that explains everything.
So the students that are studying Austrian economics, is it throughout Spain or mostly in Madrid or?
Well, I'm half Brazilian, half Gallega, which is like north of Spain. There are many people following the Austrian school, and then Madrid. These are the two centers of Austrian economics in Spain, if you will. I know there's something going on in France as well, like in Aix-en-Provence and Angers and some places. I think it's getting a lot bigger in Europe. Yeah.
Wow, that's very, very interesting to know. And when you carry on your discussion about Austrian economics, are your discussions in Spanish or are they in English? And how many books are available in Spanish about Austrian economics?
It's amazing because what this is actually translating and making all the literature there is in the U.S., like Spanish speakers and like readers, right? But I can read both languages, and most of the people are actually, even the ones who could not speak English before, they're actually learning English, and most of the literature of Austrian economics is still in English.
Right.
But we do have a lot in Spanish, and it's very interesting because the Masters is bringing a lot of people from all over the world to Madrid, so it's very international.
Let me ask you a question. I noticed that German is one of your proficiencies. Have you read any of the original German by any chance by, say, Ludwig von Mises or Hayek or
I did actually.
Really?
I didn't read the whole book, though. I did read parts of it because there are some things that are just bad. Like, okay, in English it's not bad translated. The translation is good in English, but some definitions and stuff are always better if you look at the real essence of the thing. I did read a couple of things from Mango and from
Bauer.
I did read him, but in English, I guess.
Okay. Boy, now I'm envious. That must be really something to be able to do that. So you went back and read even some of Menger's things in German. Did you read any of Mises' original writings in German, or?
Part of it, yeah. Part of the human action.
Right.
Because all the praxeology and all, it's the basics, right?
Right.
Understanding how to understand. So in order to have all ideas very clear, I just wanted to make sure that the translation in English was pretty much what I was thinking it was. So I came back to the original versions of it to make myself understood. Yeah.
Right, very interesting. Now, let me ask you something. I read this about Hayek, and it always fascinated because my language is essentially English, and that's it. But he mentioned somewhere that when he thought about his personal life, he thought about it in German, but when he thought about economics and philosophy, he thought in English. Do you think about economics in English and personal life in Spanish, or is it all in Spanish? Or
I don't really know. I don't even know the language I'm thinking of anymore.
Okay. All right. Now, let's move on and sort of get your sense for what you think is going on in Spain right now as far as the economy and the Eurozone. What do you see going on, being a person who understands Austrian economics and being on the ground right there in Spain?
I think we're in a very interesting period of the history somehow because Spain, we all know, it's having some problems, some issues with unemployment, with, you call it risk premium. The situation, economically speaking, in Spain has been very, very difficult. But it is very interesting that we are in the Eurozone because for the first time in history, cannot just, print money.
Right.
And that's amazing. Like, this is very good because it kind of makes politicians follow or do what they're supposed to do somehow. They have to do basic accountability and say, okay, we don't have the money anymore. And correct, like not just spend as they were doing before, and like public spending is reducing. Actually, What has a very good paper on that, saying that the Eurozone is working, at least with us Spanish people, somehow as the euro is the gold standard. Obviously, the euro is not as good as the gold standard.
Right.
It is kind of not allowing us to print money. The Germans are forcing us to do what we're supposed to do.
Now, what is your sense for the general public in Spain? How much of this do they understand, or are they still calling for greater government spending and so on? What would you say there?
There's a lot of confusion, I guess. We had a socialist party, and because of the crisis, now we have, it's called Partido Popular, what people think is like the right wing, but we have like pretty much left wing and right wing socialists, what we Austrian call, because they're not that different. They're pretty much the same. It is true that the work they're doing is a little bit better than the last party, but they're increasing taxes. Like, people have no money and they're still having to pay a lot of taxes, which makes no sense. Like, you want to give money to people so that people decide what to do with the money, not the other way around. There are a lot of things going on. There are a lot of changes, but changes always suppose many opinions and people going against it. We're changing currently our labor market. It is very necessary in Spain that the labor market is more flexible, that people can hire a lot easier. There's so much bureaucracy. It's so difficult. The labor market is so intervened in Spain that it's just crazy. Some people think that this would mean enterprises would do whatever they want. There's this massive movement, like left-side movement in Spain, going against measures taken by the current party. So people are very confused. And I think government is responsible for that because they don't want to show people that they cannot do anything. They've been spending more than they should have. And right now it's just outrageous. It's just they don't have control of it. People are confused.
Yeah. You know, unemployment in Spain is somewhere near 25%.
Yeah.
Do you have very high minimum wage laws, or is it, as you point out, is it just this bureaucracy that makes it difficult for companies to hire people? And is it dangerous for companies to hire people in that once they're hired, it's very difficult to fire them? Is that what's going on in Spain?
To hire someone is very difficult in Spain. Especially, it's very ironic, actually, because we're in the European Union, and even if you're European, there are, like, thousands of papers that you have, and you have to go from one place to another. Like, you'd spend at least 6 months from up to, 1 year, just trying to, be able to work.
Really?
Yeah, it's insane. It's nothing comparable to Germany or even France. I mean, they have really, really high taxes in France, but it's a lot easier to work in France than it is here. Many people that are not willing actually to work because they receive so much money from the government not to be working, because I think the max is like 1 year. You receive pretty much a salary for not work, like for not being working. Within the 25%, I would say many of them don't want to work. The other percentage is is very difficult and like for bureaucratic reasons.
Yeah, so now I'm trying to understand this as far as the hiring process. If I was Spanish and a company wanted to hire me,
yes,
you're saying it would take up to a year after that before I would actually be able to get the job because I would have to get different approvals from the government bureaucracy?
It depends on the contract that you have. But, yeah, most of the time if they are firing you, I know people in my environment, I know people very close to me that are working because they like working. They try to be fired. They would receive more from the government than they're actually receiving from the enterprise. You know what I mean? The enterprise would have to pay you a salary or a percentage of a salary, which would still be very high for not doing anything. I believe Social Security, private health care, a lot of things that you usually have when you are working, they would still have to keep it.
Well, now, is there much of a black market? Are some people collecting from the government and then...
Oh, it is. It's a huge black market in Spain, yeah. I just read in the papers that it's actually higher now. I mean, obviously.
Right. So is there much tax evasion in Spain? Is a lot of that going on also? We hear a lot of news about tax evasion in Greece right now, but is there a lot of tax evasion, people not paying their taxes or going around it somehow in Spain?
I think in Spain it's very difficult. People are trying, obviously, and, black market and all that is just, signs of it. But if you are a normal employer, then it's very complicated, a normal employee. Like myself, whenever you receive, you get your payment. Right. All your taxes are already discounted.
Right.
And I believe in Spain, fiscal taxes, like taxes on your rent, on your income, is not like the highest, I'd say, in the European Union. But then you have thousands of indirect taxes that you're paying, and these you cannot run away from.
Right. Do you think the businessmen perhaps have an opportunity to evade taxes a little more by underreporting sales and things like that? Or
they're crazy. Like, politicians do not know what to do, so eventually they're going to go higher and higher.
In Spain, say if they go to a restaurant, do they pay by credit card or do they pay by cash?
This is very funny, actually, because people do pay with credit cards, but we don't have the limits of a credit card. They're a lot smaller than I know in the U.S. You can pay with a credit card, and people do have debts with credit card, but I believe bigger debts are with banks.
Right. What would you say the average credit card balance is allowed? 1,000 euros or a lot less than that or a lot more than that?
To have 1,000 euros limit, I think you have to be very special already. Like
really?
1,000, 2,000. Yeah, usually I think it would go for 100. Like, this is usually the way it is. They don't give a lot of money.
Do you think there's any chance for civil unrest in Spain if Spain can't pay its bills and has to cut back on some of the payments it's making to the people? Do you see that as a possibility?
It really depends the way they do things. Well, here in Madrid, we do have a politician. She's not perfect, I'd say, but she has some very good ideas called Esperanza Aguirre. And the things she does, sometimes people are against her, but she gets her things done, and at the end people do realize that these things were good. I think politicians do know what they should do because they don't really have a choice. The thing is more how they do this than what. It really depends on how things are taken.
How much are people in Spain paying attention to sort of the upheaval that's going on all around the Eurozone? I mean, do they pay attention to Greece or what's going on in Italy and the rescue plans that the Eurozone leaders announce every other day? I mean, is that a major topic in Spain, or do people not care? Or
we were a little bit worried about Greece. Obviously, I think all Europe was, but if Spain's falling, then all countries are falling. You know, Spain is a lot bigger than anything else. I think the biggest issue right now is Spain.
Yeah, and I would imagine that most of the people think that the European Central Bank or Germany or somebody will come in to rescue Spain. Is that the general thinking, or?
I think that is the general thinking, but I also believe that the Germans are very clever by the way they're doing things, because they're just not like printing money as the Fed did, you know. They're taking their time. They're like, because I don't think this is the solution, right? Like, printing money is not the solution, but they're not saying they're printing money, but they are, and they're doing that like in the very long run. So somehow enterprises that were not sustainable, they are having to go bankrupt. And, you know, if something is not sustainable, just let them go bankrupt. So I think the Germans are trying to combine both things. Besides, right now with friends, with Poland and friends, you know, like all this conversation between socialists and libertarians, would say. I mean, they're doing a good work and not taking steps very fast.
Now, how easy or how difficult was it for you to find your job when you graduated from school and started looking? Were you just hired from school, or did you have to look? What was that process like?
I was very lucky. I don't think I am an example of what's happening in Spain. I was in the master's. I was doing the Austrian School of Economics master's, and my boss right now, the head of the trading desk, she had done the same master's that I did, like the Austrian School of Economics master, some years ago. And she goes to, like, once a year or twice a year to this master's to kind of do recruiting, right? Like, to search for people that would be interested in working in the investment funded work, because it combines both real investing and Austrian school. So it's necessary somehow that people that work in this place have some Austrian school background.
Right.
So I was very lucky that she approached to me and said, you know what, I'm just coming here to classes to take a look at people. If you're interested in finding a job or something, you know, give me a call, send me your CV, and we'll see. And that was pretty much it. And this is how I got a job. So I was very lucky. I know many people my age that are unemployed. I mean, this is right now.
Now, how many of those unemployed are thinking of moving overseas somehow, that they feel there's greater opportunity somewhere else? Are many doing that?
Most of them. Most of my friends are thinking of going abroad. It's very sad, though, because, you know, you invested in people, like, you know, the whole infrastructure in Spain has been working and investing in people that are just leaving the country right now. But that's the way it is. And I know many people, very close friends of mine that are just going somewhere else.
Wow. Now, where would you say they're going? I've seen some reports that some are going to Brazil and others are going to the northern Eurozone countries. Is that going on? Or?
Well, I do know many of them that are going to Germany, for example, and England. Mm-hmm. The bravest ones, I'd say, are going further, like U.S., I'd say, Brazil, like Latin America, even China, even Hong Kong and places like these.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's terrible when you have that kind of a brain drain from a country. Is anybody going to be left in the country that will be able to support the country down the road? Livia, do you think?
I hope. It's very sad because right now, like, elder people are the ones actually sustaining the whole economy. Mm-hmm. Like, there are many people, I don't know, in their 30s, 40s that are unemployed.
Right.
Like, they have worked for 20 years and they're just, all of a sudden being unemployed. So, because pensions, like public pensions, are not changing in Spain, elder people who worked a lot are still receiving, reasonable money. They're the ones sustaining the whole family, and it's just crazy. I don't know for how long this is going to last.
Are people fearful of the banks in Spain? Are they pulling money out of the bank for one of two reasons? A, because they think the banks might collapse, or B, and I guess this is probably more in Greece than in Spain, but are there any people fearful that the euro will no longer be the currency of Spain and that it will revert back to the old currency?
I don't think nobody's questioning the euro as the currency. I think if you're coming back to the pesetas, then we're it's going to be a lot worse than it is right now.
Right.
So, no, the euro is not an issue. If the banks have money, people are realizing that banks have no money, and we're not doing the corralito thing yet. Like, we're not going to the banks to get our money back. But there was something called, I don't know if you call it preferred in English, like preferentes, which is like some kind of a bond thing that you would receive your money back, but banks are not paying your money back. So people are realizing, banks have no money. This is not new for Austrian School of Economics people because, right. By definition, is already bankrupt, right?
Right.
But I think this is more and more like ordinary people and whole society is seeing that banks don't have your money there. They don't keep it. Actually, I was reading today an article from Zero Hedge, mm-hmm. the huge hedge fund, right. And they were saying that actually the banks in Spain need a lot more money than they think they do, or they say they do.
Right. Yeah, every time you turn around, it's an extra 100 billion euros here and there. Soon as they say, that means you end up talking about real money after a while.
Yeah.
So if you were to say something to government leaders in Spain to probably turn around the country as quickly as possible, what about the government leaders? What advice would you give them to sort of turn the Spanish economy around?
Get out of the way.
Right, okay. You brought up gold. Are many people in Spain now buying gold and holding gold?
I think there are, yeah. Well, there is a huge discussion about this. Myself, I don't consider gold an investment, but I do know many investment funds in Spain that do buy gold, mm-hmm. to keep the value of money. Mm-hmm. The way I see it is keep the value of money. Many people do that to invest. I don't think you receive a lot of money from gold. Gold eventually keeps its value.
Right.
In Spain, it's very common to see we're buying gold. I think people are coming back to that mentality.
Right. So now, do you yourself see gold as a hedge, as a protection against inflation, something that should be held, or you don't think it should be in a portfolio, or you do think it should be in a portfolio?
I think it's better than anything. Like, if you want to get some profit, then you would go for stocks, but it depends on the kind of fund you have. But if you want to have a very stable fund, then part of the fund should be in gold. It's a lot more stable than bonds. It's interesting that people usually think that bonds are safe.
Mm-hmm. Right. Livia, I'm with you there. It absolutely amazes me that anyone would think that any bond anywhere on the globe right now is a safe place to put your money, given the possibilities of default, given the possibilities of inflation. It's stunning.
You're giving money to the government. Like, bonds is part of the country bond, right? And
right.
And the country doesn't produce anything. Enterprises do. So you're actually putting money investing, mm-hmm. Which is not investing. But like investing a non-producer someone who's going to give you your money back based on taxes, it makes no sense.
Right, exactly. Well, Livia, thank you very much for spending the time with us. I don't think Paul Krugman is going to be heading back to Spain anytime soon, especially after the grilling he received from you, which, by the way, now, on the YouTube version I have up of it at Economic Policy Journal is something over 15,000 views. They're very close to it. And there are other versions coming out. I don't know if you've noticed it, Livia, but you're a hit.
I'm so surprised.
Yeah, you're over 15,000 right now. So if Krugman comes through again, bring in a whole video crew, and you could probably have a video out of it or something like that. Anyway, Livia, thank you very much for taking time and spending it with us.
Thank you.
To everyone out there, thanks for listening. There's a new show up every Sunday at economicpolicyjournal.com. And by the way, you can check out economicpolicyjournal.com every day, where I post about the economy, about liberty, about politics, so on and so forth, every day, all day long. That's economicpolicyjournal.com. Special shout out to executive producer of the Robert Wenzel Show, Chris Rossini. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next week.